Hi, I'm Mike Kuipers von Lande, real estate sales consultant with Harcourt's Advantage Realty in Mount Maunganui. I love living in the Mount, and when I'm not working, a favourite pastime is kayaking the Tauranga Harbour and coastline. Welcome to trip number 2. For a brief introduction to sea kayaking, check out the first few minutes of video number 1, Kayaking the Wairoa River. It's on my website. Today we're going to kayak around the Mount. I say we are because today I'm paddling a double kayak with my wife Jenny. I'll talk a little more about double kayaks later. I'd like to take some time at the start to emphasise safety, particularly with this trip. Mount Maunganui, or Mao, is an iconic landmark and a fantastic location to kayak around, but care must be taken as the waters around this area can be extremely dangerous. The channel to exit and re-enter the harbour is narrow and has tidal currents of over 5 knots, which can set up steep waves when interacting with wind and boat wakes. Large commercial ships and boats and vast numbers of recreational vessels use the channel daily, summer and winter. Stay as close to the Mount as possible when in the channel. The area we paddle through is very exposed to wind from almost any direction and oceanic swells from the north and east. On the northern coast of Mao, these can be reflected back from the rocks, creating a confused sea state akin to a gigantic washing machine. Once you leave Pilot Bay, there's no place to stop until you return, unless you want to take a surf landing onto the ocean beach. Good luck with that if there's any significant swell. The remainder of the coastline is rocky and broken and inhospitable for landing. The round trip to Rabbit Island and back that we do in this video takes us around an hour and 15 minutes, but could take much longer depending on your ability and conditions, so I suggest you need to know you can paddle for at least 2 hours without a break. Set a maximum time you feel comfortable paddling and turn around once half of this is up, even if you've not got as far as you'd hoped. So here we are leaving from Pilot Bay on a beautiful spring morning. This is a favourite trip of ours, and we've done it dozens of times, but we only do it under very specific conditions. Firstly, the direction of the wind isn't too important, but I won't go unless the wind strength is no more than 15 knots when I arrive at Pilot Bay, or if it's forecast to be more than this for the time period of the trip, and I prefer it to be really no more than 10 to 12 knots. Secondly, a north or easterly swell forecast needs to be no more than 1 metre if you're going to avoid bounce back from the northern section of the Mount. Anything over 1.5 metres can make this area very uncomfortable. In such conditions you can avoid the worst of it by paddling further out, but this will put you into the shipping channel and greater tidal flow. And anyway, for me, much of the attraction of kayaking is rock hopping as close to the coast as possible. Thirdly, I recommend doing the trip with an incoming tide. The sea state in the channel is generally smoother, and you'll have the current with you when you re-enter the harbour, rather than having to work against it when you might be tired after an hour or more of paddling. While you can stay out of the worst of the current by keeping close to the Mount, the main issue with an outgoing tide occurs at the northwestern tip of Pilot Bay by the edge of the main channel. There is a shallow rocky bank here between Mao and Maori Rock where the statue of a crouching warrior is mounted. The current races out from Pilot Bay through here like a river, and the bank dries out completely in the bottom half of the tide. Once this happens, the only way by sea is to go round the outside of Maori Rock into the main channel, and the current is strong here, often with small but steep breaking waves. It is possible to beach the boat and carry it past this area via the sandy strip exposed by the tide along the base of Mao. We've done the trip on an outgoing tide many times. This video is on an outgoing tide, but I strongly suggest an incoming tide at least the first time you do this route, and only attempting it on an outgoing tide if you are an experienced paddler and the conditions are otherwise ideal. This area ahead is where the shallow bank stretches from Mao on the right to Maori Rock that you can see here on the left. It's only about an hour after high tide, so the current hasn't reached full strength and the water is still a few feet deep. It's a different situation an hour or two later. This is the narrowest part of the channel. It's around 30 metres deep in the centre. It's quite spectacular when the huge container ships and cruise liners come through here. This is the port of Tauranga pilot boat returning after the departure of a ship. The area through here is where the sea state can become very confused if a large swell is running. Today, as you can see, there's virtually no swell at all. It's one of the calmest days I've seen out here. Up ahead of us here is North Rock with the beacon on it. As we come through one of the inner channels past North Rock, we come across a seal. It's great to see these animals returning to the mount over the last few years after an absence of many decades or longer. I'm not a seal expert, and around the time of this video there have been a number of leopard seals seen both north and south of here, but I'm pretty sure this one's a New Zealand fur seal. When we passed back about a half an hour later, he or she was still cruising back and forth through here, flipper in the air. As we come around the northeastern side of Moa, Mount Main Beach comes into view. Many times voted top beach in the country, the strip of coastline along here has some of the most valuable real estate in the country. Up ahead here is Leisure or Motoriki Island. Strictly speaking, Motoriki is more of a peninsula than an island, as it's connected to the beach even at high tide. Behind this, the round island is Rabbit Island, or Motuotau. We'll be circling this before heading back. I've been kayaking for over 20 years, and more than 90% of that has been with my wife in a double kayak. Obviously, to paddle a double you need a partner, wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, or perhaps one of your children. So why a double rather than two singles? Well, they're a practical choice if you and your paddling partner are not closely matched in strength and speed. Mismatched paddlers trying to paddle together in singles generally ends in frustration and divorce. The same two people in a double will be faster and therefore cover more distance than they would be able to at the ability of the weaker paddler in singles. They'll stay together and not get separated. Doubles are usually more stable than singles. All of this makes for safer paddling, longer trips, and a greater ability to cope with less than optimum conditions, especially for inexperienced or less able paddlers. There are some difficulties to consider though. Firstly, paddling a double is not for people who like their independence. Like marriage, you're stuck together for better or for worse. For better, please. In a kayak with cockpits close together, you must work as a team and paddle in unison, or you'll clash your paddles and emotions. There are many double kayaks with cockpits separated by a storage compartment, which provides enough distance between cockpits to paddle out of sync and at different speeds, but these have their own disadvantages. Firstly, doubles travel faster when paddled in sync, so it's best to learn to paddle in unison anyway. It's harder to communicate when you're seated further apart. In rougher conditions, the close cockpit boat will be faster than a similar sized boat with cockpits separated by a storage compartment, because the close cockpit boat pitches or hobby horses less over waves due to the paddler's weight being concentrated closer together near the centre of the boat. Boats with a central compartment tend to be longer and heavier than those without, and this can also be an issue for transport and storage. Whatever design of kayak you choose, I strongly recommend getting a proper touring boat. By this I mean one with separate cockpits and storage compartments, all sealed from each other. For doubles with close cockpits, this will mean 4 compartments. Boats with a central storage area will have 5. Sealed compartments are a vital safety feature, as it gives you the ability to self-rescue should you capsize. Even with swamped cockpits, the boat will stay afloat due to the additional sealed areas, giving you at least the potential to be able to right the boat, re-enter, pump out the flooded cockpits and make it back to shore. If the boat is holed, only one compartment will flood. A boat without separate compartments will be completely swamped should you capsize or hole it, with no realistic prospect of pumping it out and keeping it afloat. In most doubles, it's the person in the back cockpit who controls the rudder, so the front paddler has little control over direction. However, this person is far more than a passenger. They set the pace, especially in a close cockpit boat. The rear paddler has no choice but to follow the speed and tempo of the front paddler to avoid clashing paddles, so it's vital that this person sets and keeps a steady, regular, predictable stroke rate, otherwise life in the back isn't much fun at all. You'll have seen in this video that Jenny sets a quick, steady pace and maintains this for long periods, and this makes life very pleasant for me paddling behind her. It's not actually the rate you paddle at that tires you, it's the effort you put into dragging the paddle through the water, the stroke. Most people can wave a paddle in the air all day long. Once you've been kayaking for a while, you'll find that it's relatively easy to keep up a quick stroke rate for long periods and take rest breaks when tired just by putting less effort into the actual pull stroke through the water. If you're interested in doing this trip but lack a kayak or experience, I recommend calling Canoe and Kayak in Totara Street, Mount Maunganui. They do guided tours and they can supply all gear necessary. Their details are coming up on screen shortly. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep an eye out on my website for new videos of kayaking around Tauranga.